Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us for another edition of DAX Machina. We appreciate each and every one of you guys being a part of the DAX Machination. And for those of you who may be new to the channel, make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe. Not only does it help with the algorithm, but it'll let you know anytime we go live, and we'd love having you with us. Tonight in the studio, we got a full house. We got Steve Wildman Monroe, Robby Rip Rains, and Carrie Pocket Doc Davis. The boys are back in town. Boys, how you doing?
Wyatt, I'm rolling.
Steve, how you doing, brother?
Well, I have not yet begun to defile myself, sir. But no, doing well.
Early.
Working. It is early. It is early, and the scotch is in reach. But no, it's been working myself to death, but doing all right otherwise.
Good.
Well, we're glad you're here. Robby, how you doing, brother?
Oh, I started defiling myself after that miserable excuse for a Clemson game earlier. So I'm
You're already halfway there.
Oh yeah.
Who'd they lose to?
North Carolina State.
NC State, the Wolfpack.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Well,
Yep.
you know,
Lost to
can't
Miami
win
last
them all,
week,
I guess.
NC State this week. So I'm peachy, guys.
You gonna take him to the train station, Robby?
Yeah.
On a completely unrelated note, Robby, who does not like whiskey, is about 2 fingers in.
I think he's found one he does like.
Back, Steve.
What'd you say, Robby? I'm sorry.
I said I passed 2 fingers about 3 miles back.
Well, depends on how you measure it. You
I
know.
got big hands though, so
You know, some days you use 2 fingers, and other days it's 2 fingers and a very generous thumb.
is that 2 fingers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, top and the bottom, those are 2 fingers technically.
You know, just pick any two.
Well, I know y'all have been busier than one-legged guys in butt kicking contests, but you know I'm damn glad you guys are here, especially the last show leading up to Halloween. And I've been saving this topic for last. It's one I've been planning pretty much since October, the beginning of October. It's something people have asked me about quite a few times, and I never really had a real good answer. It's, do werewolves and dogmen transform? Now, Steve and Doc, our medical boys, and I want them to kind of give us the background on, you know, what exactly in the animal kingdom can and does change shape, whereas Robby and I are going to look at it purely from a werewolf folklore kind of point of view. So, having said that, what do you guys think? Do you think they can transform?
Actually change shape. Well, depends on whether you're talking about something that's reversible or not. You know, metamorphosis happens. You know, your caterpillars turn into a bag of goo and then come out as a butterfly, but that doesn't go the other direction. So I would say yes and no, unless there's some kind of critter I'm not thinking of. What do you think, Doc?
I don't know. Do we even create that enough energy to do that? You know what I mean? Because the energy requirements, you know, for, you know, a caterpillar, you know, to go through all the different stages, you know, to the butterfly. I mean, how much energy do they have to? I mean, they fatten up before they go in their cocoon. You know what I mean? So, and that's over a long period of time. So the energy requirements alone to not only change into something, but change back would be staggering.
That's one of the things I always said in my Apex Predator books. And something I've pointed out time and time again is that all of the characters that change, they take in a hell of a lot of calories. They have to.
Well, that's something that a lot of different stories, movies, books, that's something, or, you know, you got your certain things that are pretty much always characteristic of these things. That's one that may not be universally across the board, but it is one that's kind of prevalent amongst a bunch of them, is that, like Doc said, it's a huge caloric intake that you would have to take in after something like that happened, because the energy that you would have to put out. I mean, yeah,
And yeah, not only that, but you'd have to rewire your entire cellular makeup, to
Yeah.
form.
Did you
Turn in genes on and off.
did you watch that video I mentioned to you?
I
to
did.
watch? That, I mean, to me, scientifically, I think that's about not the only way you can explain it. As far as I can see, is Doc and Steve watches that, they could probably say, no, there's a few other ways, but to me, that makes the most sense.
It does make a lot of sense when they're talking about it. The shift actually from human to the wolf hybrid taking as much as 6 weeks, but there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, this is kind of like the one with Jack Nicholson, Wolf. The shift was gradual, and it was from man to a regular wolf.
Just like the one in Ginger Snaps. That was a long
Yeah.
transition too.
Yeah, same thing. Same premise of you bit, infected, whatever and this guy based it off of the parvovirus, and he gave it was HPV? I think?
Yeah, like a cross between parvo and HPV.
Yeah, and he said that because primates and canines are the only two that supposedly can carry this disease. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. This is the information he gave.
Oh, is that a Thought Potatoes video you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And-
that is a good one.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a good video.
and the way he explained, he definitely did his research, I think. But basically, it starts from the infection, and it just starts working its way. And like you said, it could take up to 6 weeks. But if you survive, number one, you're pretty much that's it. There is no going from here to here and here to here. It's done. But he said that probably over half of the people that are infected and start change don't survive because points like Doc just brought up about the whole rewiring of your entire nervous system and things like that.
Right.
But you got to have that if you're looking at it from a purely folklore standpoint, which is the point that DA and I are kind of following through. When it gets into that supernatural realm and that thing like that, there's things that happen that there's no way you can explain. I mean, theoretically and physically, a bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly. Aerodynamically, it's not. So how does a bumblebee fly? Who knows? It just does. So how would these transformations take place? They just do, or they just would.
Magic.
It's magic.
With spirit fingers and stuff.
Yeah. But when you look at the old werewolf lore, even he who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf's bane blooms and the moon is full and bright. If you look at that, dating back to that, they're talking about somebody under the light of a full moon. We're talking a single night changing from human to wolf and back again. Do you think that's feasible, or is there any precedent for something like that?
I mean, if you look at it from a supernatural standpoint, then scientific reasoning, it kind of goes out the window, So, I mean, if there is a magical component to it, then who's to say it couldn't happen?
I mean,
well, a lot of things we used to think were magic and folklore have wound up having scientific explanations.
Yeah.
And do you think it's entirely possible that this might have been one of those cases where people were attributing supernatural abilities to something that wasn't really supernatural?
Well, I mean, look at the ways that take movies out for a minute, because bitten or scratched, and or born. That's pretty much your spectrum of how you get transformed into a werewolf in your movies. But look at actual folklore and drinking water from a wolf's paw under the full moon, or just drinking water from a wolf's paw, making a pact with the devil, wearing a wolf's pelt on the full moon, wearing a wolf's pelt and putting some kind of special salve that you've gotten from a medicine man, getting blessed or cursed by a medicine man. There's so many different ways that, and I guess it just depends on which, if you're looking at European or if you're looking at North American, if you're looking at, any other part of the world, it's going to be different no matter where you look at it as to how these things happen. So it's kind of like Doc said, you just kind of got to say, okay, it just happens.
We're just going to suspend scientific reasoning for the moment and just say if there is a magical / supernatural component to it, hey, magic.
Because scientifically, could drinking water out of a wolf's paw print?
Yeah.
Right.
Might give you a phenomenal case of diarrhea, but that's about it.
Dysentery or something like that.
Whenever I hear the story about somebody drinking water out of a wolf print, it always makes me think of that line from True Grit. What he says, I drank water from a hoof print. And then John Wayne's like, a hoof print? I ain't never met one of you boys from Texas what ain't drink water out of a hoof print.
Oh, Ranger LaBeef.
I love that movie.
What do y'all mention that, a lot of this stuff, a lot of folklore is based in fact. I was thinking as we were talking about this, about, the werewolf being kind of a wolf-human hybrid, it could be something as simple, these identifying people in this wolf form could be something as simple as somebody suffering from, hypertrichosis or something, that just looks like Lon Chaney, but of course they wouldn't observe them turning into that or turning back from it.
Well, where do we get our term lunatic from? From the lunar cycle, which we know that the cycle of the moon affects things like that. It affects, the tide. It affects the chemical balance in your body. You can throw it out of whack. And that's where you get the term lunatic from, the lunar cycle. So some of these people.
And what are we made mostly of? We're made mostly of water. So it's like us.
Well, and the term lycanthropy comes from King Lycan or Lycan or Lycaid, however you want to pronounce it. It
was pronounced Lycian.
Yeah, I've heard it pronounced every different way. So however you want to pronounce it, the king that tried to feed his son to Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take the shortcut and go around his name. And the guy who tried to fool Zeus and feed one of his sons, he slaughtered to Zeus. Zeus got mad, cursed him and the rest of his sons to walk the earth as a beast for the rest of their lives.
Now, is that a first example of a werewolf? Is that the first example of the cynocephali?
I think it's the first lycanthropic story, the first transformation.
Well, yeah, Zeus does change him, but they can't change back.
Right. So
if King Lycian and his sons are cursed to be walk the earth as a wolf, would they be the progenitors of the cynocephali? Which I believe are the modern version is dogman.
That's a very good question. Because like you've said many, many times before, that shows up across history throughout many different cultures.
Yeah, it's a common theme. Both show.
So
well, and then you've got the story of Saint Christopher, but he was kind of the reverse. He when he became saintly, after carrying the child across the river, then he turned from a wolf to a man. Or from a dog-headed man to a man, I guess.
Well, and I guess it goes back to like what we were talking about earlier. Depending on where you're going to focus the conversation first. What did come first? Did the story of King, however we're going to pronounce his name, come first, or did these sightings come after that story was, so did one predate the other, or did somebody see this and that's where that story came from?
No.
That's a good point.
Well, classic Greek mythology would have taken place probably, a couple thousand years BC, maybe. And Saint Christopher lived in like the 13th, 14th century AD. So
Well, I'm talking about what DA said. If King, how'd you pronounce it?
Just call him Lycan. Just
King
King
Lycan.
Lycan.
King Lycanthrope,
like that works.
King Wolfman, was he the progenitor of the cynocephaly, or the stories we hear of that, or did somebody see the cynocephaly first and come up with the story of King Lycanthrope?
Right. Standing Stones had a good point. They said, I think Dogman is a lab experiment that was bad, escaped, and then reproduced.
Well, we've talked about that before. There may be some who are have been experimented on, which obviously we believe that happened. But what we're talking about, the sightings of these things go back way longer than there's been laboratories.
Yeah, the term Dogman wasn't coined until the late 90s, but the term cynocephaly has been kicking around since the Roman and Greek empires.
And werewolf, everything that we
before
say,
Plum Island.
everything that we call Dogman now, before 1996 or 7, I think, maybe even 99. I can't remember what year that was. It's because of the Michigan Dogman. That's where that came from. But everything before that was either a werewolf or a lycanthrope or cynocephaly or something. There was no Dogman before the late 90s.
Evan Bode said, if they can transform, do they know it, or is it lost time? I would think that they would be mostly bestial, but it's hard to say. In my books, the main characters are able to retain their memory and their intelligence, but when they fall to the dark side, when they become Oolonga Doglala, when they become the Dogmen, they're just beasts.
Oh.
And I've seen movies and read books that go both ways as far as that goes. And sometimes, and I want to say that the TV show Werewolf was one of the better ones that did that, where like it was kind of both. There was times he could remember what he did, and then there was times, and it depended on how the transformation happened, how mad he was, how afraid he was, what was going on that caused the transformation. Any of that that stuff affected how much control he retained and how much he remembered during the transformation. Because like when you go up at the end of that first, basically the movie, the pilot, the end of that, he pretty much remembered that entire fight that he had with Scorzini at the end of the show. But going back, his first transformation, he didn't remember anything because somebody got killed that night and he thought he did it. And she was like, no, I kept you locked up. So that's the good example of something where just depending on the situation. And that may be what it is. If this is a real thing, that there's a lot of outside factors that go into what happens during that transformation.
Derek Buckle said, outside of Greek mythology, what other cultures have a werewolf or dogman mythos?
Eastern European. There's
Japanese, Chinese.
Japanese. Germany's got Germany and France, I think, are two of the most famous. Peter Stoop and the Beast of Gévaudan. I pronounced that right.
The Philippines has a myth as well.
Yeah.
As does the India.
Yeah, I think, well, that one maybe not a werewolf, but the Aztecs have were-jaguars and other.
Scotland's I think the one that gives people fish.
I think most, the wolver.
Yep.
But I think most cultures have a similar type myth. May not be identical, but at least it's very similar.
Yeah, Martin Napier, the Ulfhednar for Norse mythology.
Noah's got a good point. Cuchulainn from Irish mythology basically became a dog man, for want of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
And the Norse have the Ulfhednar.
Like Lene said, Egypt had Anubis and Wepawet.
Wepawet.
Wepawet was more of what you would consider a dogman or a werewolf. Anubis.
Yeah, he was more of a wolf. Anubis was a jackal.
Yeah. But they both had the exact kind of, or not the exact, but they both had kind of the same job as far as dealing with the underworld and death and things like that. So
Roxanne Delgado says, then where did it come from? When bit by a dogman, you change into one. I think that's more a blending of the werewolf legend. Because like if you look at the Cherokee Oolonga dog Lala, it doesn't talk about them biting people and become infected. However, it does talk about people becoming corrupted, because Oolonga dog Lala basically means spirit with knife teeth. So they're a corrupted, they're an evil spirit. So I would assume it would be possible for a human to become one. But I think when you're talking about somebody actually getting turned by a bite, I think that's more toward classic werewolf mythology.
Yeah, and
I would
honestly,
agree.
I think a lot of that came from Hollywood.
Yeah, and
'Cause
I would think
I don't know too many ancient legends that I've read that said if you bite somebody, they turn into one. Most of it is like how you turn into ones like we talked about earlier, drinking out of the wolf's paw print or the curse or any of that kind of stuff. I can't think of any older folklore legend. Because think about Peter Stoop, think about the Beast of Gévaudan, all those people, and there was a couple people that survived those attacks, but nobody ever said anything about them going on to turn into these things. It was,
True.
yeah, I
I
think you
think
get
that
bit by a dog man, you become kibble. I think that's pretty much
yeah.
Lunch.
I think
Williams,
that was a Hollywood thing.
I would agree. Gwyn Williams says, have you guys heard of a type of wolf or dogman in the African culture? Well, it depends on what African culture. Obviously, we've got Wepawet and Anubis from Egyptian folklore, but I do believe that there are some African tribes that believe not only can their shaman change, their medicine men, not only can they change forms, but they talk about lion-headed people. They talk about jackal-headed people. So it's not an uncommon thing across many different cultures.
But they have were crocodiles in
Mm-hmm.
some parts of Africa too that they talk about. So, I think sometimes here in Western culture we get so focused on werewolf because that's such a popular term, and that's there's books and movies and things like that. But it's not just wolves that are
Right. There are bears.
bears.
Just about every
berserkers.
animal, there's something.
Yeah,
Well,
that's where
you
the
look at
term
berserker comes from, is the bears. The Ulfhednar in Norse mythology. It's a couple of versions of that story. Some they were adorned themselves as wolves and basically entered this state of mind where nothing could hurt them. And then there are other versions of the story where they became wolves.
Yep. There's actually in the game Skyrim, there's a DLC that, and Skyrim is kind of heavily based on Norse mythology. It's supposed to be a different world, but it's based heavily on Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a DLC that actually deals with shapeshifting and things like that. And there basically are berserkers and Ulfhednar in that, and that's one of the things that it goes to a little ceremony, and you have to willingly go through this to become one of these things. So that was what that was all based on. It's not just something that happens to you. You have to willingly, give yourself over to whatever this is. Yep, you're right. They're called werebears, but that's basically what they are. No, they're berserkers, and they call them werewolves, but they're, it's all heavily based on Norse mythology. So they're Ulfhednar and berserkers.
Well, in World War II, the Germans had a unit referred to as the werewolves.
Yep.
Of course, they wanted everybody to believe they became wolves, but they certainly were vicious. I'll give them that.
Yeah, they had the advantage of methamphetamines too.
Well, and I mean, not for nothing, but if you just like, what was that movie we were talking about, DA, where the deputy, his dad was the sheriff, and he got killed or died or whatever, everybody was thinking it was a werewolf that was in town. It was a guy dressed up like the
No,
wolf.
that movie. I know which movie you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it. It was
But-
really good though.
Werewolf Within.
No, it was. This was a. It was. I know what you're talking. You're talking about the Beast Within.
Beast
Which-
Within. There's some other Shadow Valley or something like that.
Yeah, there was a town out in like Alaska or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And everybody was convinced it was a werewolf, and he was like, "No, there's no such thing as werewolf." And then he sees it, but it was basically just a guy that had went out and made himself a big. I mean, he had steel, almost like a trap jaw that was made
Wolf
for.
of Snow Hollow.
That's it.
Right there.
Yeah, there we go.
The thing is the guy was using that mystique and that fear that was built up of, oh my God, this is a real werewolf. You know, that was what drove him. So, and going back to what you said earlier about the Ulfhednar and the Berserkers, that's kind of the same thing that happened with them, was that when they got into that state, they really, from all the things that I've watched, they really believed that that's what they were at that time.
Yeah. David By, hey, well, 15 months of membership, dude. Thank you so much. That is awesome. He says Berserker Rage wasn't just a voluntary state. There was also a hereditary aspect of it, which is, father and sons follow,
like that. Yeah.
Sons following in their father's footsteps, that kind of thing.
Well, something with the mental health aspect probably would have something to do with that, right, Steve? Doc?
Well, yeah. And in some of the werewolf legends, if the werewolf reproduces while he's in human form, his offspring would be a werewolf as well. So, interesting. But I think mental health is a big component of it. We were talking about all the changes we see with the full moon and everything. Anybody who's ever worked in law enforcement, healthcare, education, they've all seen it. I mean, hell, the last full moon I met Meth Jesus. Anything's possible, and anything that can respond to gravity or magnetism, probably. Mm-hmm. Like Doc said, we're mostly water.
That's right. It happens.
Yeah.
Boom was pointing out the Corvinus strain from Underworld.
Yep.
That's actually a pretty good explanation of it, to be honest.
Yeah. 2 sons, one bitten by bat, one bitten by wolf, and that's where the strains for both came from.
Mm-hmm.
But see that, and with that, William was never able to go back, so he would have been more like a Oolanga Doglala. He would have been more of a dogman, whereas like Lucian and all his were more because that's kind of, and I've never really thought about it, but that kind of marries both the dogman and the werewolf together
it does
into one movie or one series, however you want to look at it.
I need to watch those again.
Yeah, because you had some that couldn't turn back, and it kind of now that I'm sitting here thinking back on it, it kind of follows exactly what you said in your Apex Predator books. Those that just gave into the madness and just let go, they never were able to come back. But Lucian kept control, and he taught all these others, because he was born a werewolf. He taught all these others to control it and how to stay in control, and then they were able to switch back and forth, and that became the modern Lycans. That's actually I'm glad to
and the viral component
Yeah.
would make sense. I mean, we kind of alluded to it with Thought Potatoes, parvovirus mutation, but there's a lot of zoonotic viruses out there that can affect multiple animals. I mean, look at the coronaviruses. They could affect bats and dogs both, and so I think a wolf, and think about how quickly those viruses mutate.
Well, I mean,
hey, Josh
honestly,
Jones is in the house. Hey, Josh, thanks for the super
Josh.
chat, brother. He says, I think Dogman is more of a long-term evolutionary path for prehistoric wolves. We've kicked that idea around. If Dogman might be an
offshoot of direwolves.
Of direwolves. And one of the reasons I think that is I know of at least about a dozen cases of sightings of Dogman where the witness said the thing approached them on all fours, and before it got up, they heard a popping sound. And to me, that just, it almost like it says it's changing the morphology of its hand. Now, that might not be a transformation, but it certainly makes a hell of a lot more sense than a full physical change and then going back. Steve, Doc, what do you guys think about it being able to like alter much like a way a gorilla flattens its hand out to run on all fours? What do you guys think about that as a plausible explanation?
I think it's plausible. I mean,
Oh yeah.
if it's mechanics, if it's body mechanics, have its skeleton, able to do that, then hey.
Well, dogmen, when people have seen dogmen's hands, they've always described the hands as spindly like a raccoon's hands, which to me would almost raccoon's fingers look almost like they've got an extra joint. I mean, because they can really curl them up, and raccoons run on all fours. Mm-hmm. Now, if a dogman is able to change the morphology of its hand, and if the natural state is a paw, it would certainly explain why we haven't found a body. Because anytime one is killed, they just think it's a really big damn wolf.
Yeah, but that would really be no different than any of these animals that can fold their wings back up almost completely up against their body. I mean, like think about bats, how they can. I mean, they can make their wings almost completely disappear up against their body and walk around on their wings. I mean, that's
roughly what I was thinking of is the bats. Their wings turn into legs.
That's roughly what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it may not be a full transformation, but at least enough of a change where it looks very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just being honest, that's creepy looking when a bat folds its wings up, starts walking around on its wings.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
sorry.
Well, and if you had never seen,
creepy.
Thanks, Josh.
If you've never seen a bat before, and you just see them, walking along the ground, like those vampire bats before they bite a cow or something. If you had never seen them fly, you wouldn't put it together and go, oh, that's like a bird. You're like, no, it's some kind of weird spindly hamster or some shit.
Take that, you winged spawn of Satan! I gotta watch Ace Ventura 2 again now.
Standing Stone says, "Give me a Squatch any day. I don't like dogmen. I think they're killing stuff whether it needs food or not." And that's a great point. That would explain what happened out in Meeker, Colorado. There were cows killed and not fed on.
Yeah.
They were killed just because they could.
Well, I mean, think about which one was it? Jurassic World, where after they made the Indominus Rex, where it was just killing just to be killing. He said it's trying to find its place on the food chain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what what you got with stuff like that is just things like this are just trying to test and find out where they are on the food chain, which is scary. But what will fight back if I attack it? Okay, that fights back. I don't want to mess with that.
Right.
That doesn't fight back.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when you're trying to figure out what plants are edible, you take a bite out of it. Well, that one gave me the shits. Okay, we're not doing that one again.
Well, it's how coffee was discovered. It was a guy with a herd of sheep. Oh, no, it was a herd of goats. And these goats were eating these berries, and they started getting all frisky and jumping around. And this guy's like, "What the hell's in these berries? Why are these goats getting all freaked out after they eat them?" So he tried it, felt the pick me up, and that's the first time somebody ever decided to try coffee.
That was the first espresso shot.
Yeah, first. My old lieutenant James Jenkins, he's in the chat quite a bit. He may have been here tonight. I haven't seen him comment though. He brought in this great big freaking like 20-pound box of chocolate covered espresso beans and put them in master control at the jail when I was working in there. Oh my God. We were eating those things like Skittles, and then pretty soon we're like, holy crap.
Yeah. One of my coworkers brings those in. You give me 5 or 6 of those and I can smell colors.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Thought I was having a heart attack. I ate so many of them.
Julio. I have no tipi from my Bangol.
Not Josh.
Hi, Josh.
All right, Josh.
Thanks for joining us, buddy.
So, if, like Doc said, we're going to suspend scientific reasoning for a minute,
Well, we can't rule out the possibility of the supernatural.
right? So, but let's suspend supernatural, and let's just take this. These things are real, and they do, like, pick your favorite transformation scene from a movie or a book or whatever. They do. It is a person that, starts here, goes here, and we'll deal with whether they can go back and forth or not in a later thing. But morphology wise, getting past what you said earlier, Doc, with the energy and the rewired and all that stuff, just in a bare bones minimum, if all that stuff could be answered, is it possible for the human body to go through that and actually transform from human to a wolf, in your opinion? Steve, you too, both of you.
I don't know. Steve, I'm gonna let Steve handle that one.
So you mean are we talking through a natural process, you mean?
Yeah, let's just throw all the speculation, all the have to be. Let's just say all that stuff is met, all the energy and all the rewired and all this and that and all that stuff that we're kind of worried about and hinging on. All that stuff's out. You've got all that stuff that you need. Is it possible, if you have all that stuff met, is it possible for the human body to go through that and survive? I guess that would be the better question.
I would think that if you have the right catalyst and a strong enough individual, I think it's possible. Only because, like we're seeing instances now where like baseline changes are happening to people's DNA due to, DNA introduced with viruses, stem cell work and stuff like that. You'd have to amp it up by a factor of 100 or 1,000. But I think it's conceivable.
I guess that was a question.
Yeah.
That's a whole hell of a lot of stimulus for the brain to go through. So, is that something like? And I guess you just answered that. You would have to just. Not everybody would be able to make it through that. You would have to have, somebody with a very strong.
Could you imagine what your cortisol levels would be after a transformation like that? With all the, your C-reactive protein, all your inflammatory markers would be off the freaking chart. You'd have to worry about a hit to your kidneys, a hit to your liver.
Well, not just what it would do to your vitals and your symptoms. Can you imagine how that would feel? All these muscles tearing and regrowing, all the joints breaking and reforming.
If someone, let's say we could do that, one, your caloric intake would probably be many, many thousands of calories a day, 15, 20,000 calories a day. You would have to have some sort of maybe a genetic mutation to your DNA. You'd have to have, your osteoblasts, your osteocytes would have to work at warp speed.
So
everything would be hyper,
So the stories in the movies of when they just go completely nuts and kill and eat 20 or 30 innocent victims in a night, that would be why stuff like that has to happen.
Yeah, their metabolism would have to be incredibly fast.
They'd literally be fueling up.
Yeah. Well, and it would, just their adrenals would be going 90 to nothing.
Yeah.
It would be ridiculous. And you figure with all those inflammatory markers going up and all the connective tissues and stuff, it would be like, fibromyalgia on steroids.
Yeah. And so to counteract that, you'd also have an overabundance of naturally occurring orphans as well.
So all that being said,
everything will be hyper.
All that being said, you go through all that, you transform, you go out, and a lot of this, you think about comics, think about Marvel with the Incredible Hulk. This is what I can equate is the closest thing to going through that when Bruce Banner switches from Bruce Banner to the Hulk. I would equate that's probably a lot a lot of the same type of things that he would be going through without the eating people part of it, obviously. So
Depends on what you're talking about.
well, true, okay, but we said it's possible if all of the stuff is here, that if there was that individual that can handle it and can go through that, and then all this other stuff, what would that do to the person if they went from, like you said up here, Doc, and then all of a sudden they're coming back and turning back?
I mean, you look at him. He was radioactive, so everything was already enhanced through radioactive energy. But maybe that's like you were saying about the people, about them eating all those people. Maybe not only that helps them, that fuels them up for the change for the first change, but maybe it fuels them up for the transforming back.
Yeah, because that's something that a lot of the books and the movies don't really ever talk about. Is it's all full throttle on the change from human to wolf, but would that not be just as hard and wrenching on the body to go back the other way?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking it's not really a wolf, but the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
When Hyde changes back to Jekyll, remember how he's basically on the verge of hypoglycemic shock.
Yeah.
He's like all sweaty and looks like he's ran a marathon. That would probably be the kind of after effect you'd see from somebody.
Well, that's a detail I tried to add into the Apex Predator books.
Yeah, they'd be spent.
These guys, they not only do they need to require a tremendous amount of calories to fuel themselves, these guys eat like horses, but when the transformation's done, they're just wiped out.
Yeah, you'd have to sleep for a couple of days after something like that. I mean, just for your body to be able to move or to function again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would think.
It'd have to be incredibly traumatic on the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you'd have to have, like Steve and I were saying, you'd have to have a super resilient immune system. All your vitals, all your vital organs would have to be like reinforced, or just working at super function,
Think about like one of the best transformation scenes that not one of the best I've ever seen, but a good one. Let's just put it that way. And I know the Howlings fell off after the first one. Second one was stupid. Third one was stupid. But when you get down to 4, which is basically just a remake of the first one, it's kind of the same story retold. But when that guy takes his fingers and he just kind of splits the skin off, and the wolf snout comes out, and he's basically kind of the same transformation type that Scorzini did in
Werewolf
TV series. Pretty much, he was a wolf all the time underneath that, and the human form was just a disguise, basically. I mean, he was the wolf all the time. So thinking about that, when you go, if you're tearing this skin off, and you look a certain way, how physiologically can you go back to you take your hands and you tear your face completely off and you're a wolf underneath? How do you go back from this to looking like exactly that? They never go over that. They never. That's just kind of glossed over. But
one thing I noted in my books is they would use the transform to heal wounds, because if your body's going on that much of a major structural change, why would you transform and still have the same wounds? All that tissue growing and regrowing, those wounds would heal.
And that makes sense. But what I'm saying, if you completely just, and I guess if you think about it and just like the Benicio del Toro, the remake of the Wolfman, where it's just more or less sprouting hair and growing teeth, and there's just a few little changes here and there, and you don't really go through a big metamorphosis. It's a little bit easier to swallow. But when you're turning into something like Hugh Jackman and Van Helsing, or the Wolves and the TV show Werewolf, or
American Werewolf London.
Yeah, when you're completely, your entire body you're no longer a humanoid. You're
A beast.
yeah. How that's something that I think that Hollywood has never got a hold of. Let's just put it that way. Because and you mentioned Ginger Snaps earlier, Doc. I mean that was a pretty good movie. The first one, at least. First one and third one's okay. The second one was stupid.
Yeah.
But it's something that they never. But I guess it was like Wolf with Jack Nicholson she wasn't going to go back to her human form. She was transforming gradually along the way. But David Naughton in American Werewolf in London, he's back and forth.
Right.
So how do you go from looking like this to ripping your skin completely off, turning into basically a wolf, and then going back to looking like this?
Right.
Yeah. I'm still hung up on their mental state. I would think that going either direction, with those cortisol levels off the charts, the adrenaline levels off the charts, I mean, these guys are going to be batshit nuts after a transformation. And it doesn't matter whether you're going to canine or to human.
Well, just imagine the sensory overload. Going from having normal human senses what does the average canine smell? About 400 times more than we do?
7,000.
7,000. Okay. Way more than I thought it was. So suddenly everything you've ever smelled is completely different and intensely more powerful. Every sense of touch, every taste, everything is going to be off the charts. That's not the hunger drive. That's going to be other drives as well. Maybe even the sex drive. What the hell would happen? I mean, we have no idea what it would do to somebody.
And there again, there's a movie that dealt with that part of it too. Big Bad Wolf.
Doc, are you okay?
I just had a vision.
Oh Lord!
Be my luck, I'd probably fall off the couch and break my neck trying to lick myself. I don't know. I mean, it's
Dog Soldiers. Ryan,
exactly.
All yet.
Exactly. No, but you're right. I mean, everything would be heightened. Not only your bodily functions before, during, and after the transformation, but after the transformation, like you said, your DNA has totally changed. Your genetic makeup is different, and now you're this creature that you weren't just a few minutes ago, and you're literally seeing everything in a whole different light.
Well, building up to the transformation, everything would start to heighten. I mean, you'd crave raw meat. You would want to cook it. The smell of everything around you would just be intoxicating.
That's that. They kind of talked about that in American Werewolf in Paris, which I hate to bring that one up because I know that one.
It had its good points, but it was a kind of overall not a great.
But they dealt with that. They dealt with that when he was in the restaurant, and he was wanting the rare, uncooked. Don't cook it. Just
how do you want it? Bloody.
Yeah, and he was like when the girl walked in the restaurant, and he could smell it. They kind of dealt with that, and there's not a whole lot.
Or at the end of The Howling, when Marcia Quist walked into that restaurant and smelled that raw meat.
Yes, Marcia.
Yeah. Now that was a werewolf.
Yeah. I don't blame old what's his name. But I guess the point we're making, you can look at all these movies and some of them are similar, some of them are completely different, and I guess it all comes down to really where you fall in the spectrum as far as what you believe as to, and obviously these movies take a lot of liberties, and they'll hear one thing and then they'll make 25 new things out of that one thing that they read a little brief snippet of something in a history book somewhere. Well, let's make of this and this and this and this. But where you fall on that spectrum depends on how you do you think it's just an animal? Do you think it's a spirit that is taken over somebody? Do you think it's somebody who is, been born with this, or genetically, predispositioned to have this? Because I think there's been a lot of things said tonight that I didn't even think of, like Steve and Doc were both saying it would just average everyday person couldn't go through this. It would have to be somebody who really, really, really had a high pain tolerance would be the first thing that I would think of.
Extremely high pain. Mark Napier said, after the first change, even in human form, would the apex predator be your attitude? Well, they addressed that in Wolf. His entire persona started changing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you would ever fully go back to being who you were before.
Yeah, he went from being somebody who just was like, oh, okay, whatever, to being like pissing on the guy's legs. Yeah. I mean, what are you doing?
Piss on James Spader's leg.
I got to thinking about something. I think Doc started to kind of touch on that, and we veered off topic. We're talking about all these endocrine changes the body would have, the adrenaline levels and the dopamine levels and everything. I was thinking about when you see a human that goes through a trauma, like people come to the emergency room and their leg is missing and they're not even aware that it is, because of the natural dopamine and the body's natural opiates that are
human
released.
Mind will find a way to cope.
Right. And I was wondering if some of that could actually apply during these transformations. I mean, yeah, it may still hurt like a bitch, but it may not be the extremely unattainable pain that we were thinking either, based on those chemicals.
And that's a good point, Stephen. And what about this? And I'm going off another rabbit hole here, but we said earlier it was like some kind of virus, the parvovirus or whatever they were talking about, the different viruses that could change it. What if you were exposed to this, it started modifying your DNA, at your base level to prepare your body for this change so that you could survive the transformation?
Well, I mean, it would have to, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Aaron Polson says, do you think their coat would be different in different seasons?
I mean, I guess
I think any other animal, I think it would. It'd be thicker in the winter.
You better get a damn good vacuum cleaner. That's all I got to say.
I think the thought potato transformation is probably the most reasonable.
Yeah, and
days, weeks,
months. Like you said, though, Steve. I mean, he's saying that not everybody would make it through this. So let's just say that this is something that's naturally occurring in 1 in 1,000 cases. Somebody is a carrier, or somebody can turn, or whatever the number would be. Let's just say that it's that, and the government has figured this out, and they have gotten to weaponize it like the government's apt to do. Mm-hmm. There would have to be something that, because it's not going to do them any good to have 1 out of every 1,000 be feasible.
Right.
To be a super soldier.
They got to find a way to make it more viable than just, a very rare.
They would have to find a way to stabilize the virus, the person, and make it, what's the term I'm looking for? Make it where it's more.
Have to be efficient.
Efficient. There you go. That's what I was trying to think of. Thank you, Steve. But
no worries.
If you don't have those three things, then what good is, we've got 1,000 people here. Maybe one of them will be a super soldier. You get to the Steve Rogers thing. Well, right. I got one guy, and you ain't enough. Which we all know it turned out to be enough, but still, that will be the mentality of it: is one person or one super soldier, one dog soldier.
Sure. They invest millions of today's dollars, and they get one soldier out of it.
Yeah.
I think Doc hit on a good point, though. If we know that viruses can change DNA. If you're accidentally or intentionally introducing some kind of a group of genes through a viral vector, it could work in the background for some time. Days, weeks, months, and then when the time's right, that catalyst clicks, the certain genes flip on, and then you know.
Yeah.
And then you're tall, dark, and hairy.
It actually, Craig Zerf.
Time you're prepared, physically.
Think about the Craig Zerf, that the guy that wrote I can't remember the name of the series, but it was basically that same principle. You know what I'm talking about, DA?
I think so. I think I know the series you're talking about,
The
but I can't remember what it's called.
The character's name was Brenner. They called him Brenner
Mhm.
Wolf when he was turned to werewolf. He was basically during Vietnam. That's what they did. I can't remember. Did he get killed and they brought him in, or did he get experimented on first? Then he got killed and they. Anyway, but
Dude, it has been a long time. since I
Yeah,
read those.
it has to. Same here, but basically he was in Vietnam. He was experimented on either before or after he died, whatever. He was turned into a genetic werewolf. He was not born a werewolf. He wasn't bitten and turned into. The U.S. government turned him into a werewolf.
Right.
And he was one of those, like in the Big Bad Wolf, he could talk in his wolf form. He knew what was going on. He could turn at will, but it was basically like you were talking about earlier, Steve, and not both. That he was, I guess, when he went through his enlistment phase and did all his paperwork on him. He was identified as, okay, this guy's,
they look for certain genetic markers.
Yeah,
and who's to say they don't?
I mean, there you go. You got your willing participants there that sign. What do they say?
They can't say no because they signed away their life on the dotted line.
What does USMC stand for? You signed that contract.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and I got to thinking about it. I've never served, but I've seen enough films, showing the induction process into the military, like Full Metal Jacket or whatever, when they're shooting them up with all those vaccinations, yellow fever and typhoid and all that other smallpox. Be a great opportunity to introduce that parvovirus vector or whatever, whatever we're gonna, say turns them.
Right. When I was a kid, I always thought about the monsters. Most of them scared me, but though I always wanted to be a werewolf. I mean, if I could pick one, that was the one.
I had one of my friends in elementary school convinced I was a werewolf.
Well, maybe you are. I haven't seen you in full moon.
You never know. I mean, I was born in November, and I'm part Cherokee, and the Timberwolf is my totem.
I say,
you never know.
Isn't it the full moon today, or is it?
Yeah, it's tonight.
It is tonight. That's what I thought.
What time we getting out here, DA?
Robbie's getting a little cagey on us. He's like,
I'm
starting to get a little hairy here.
The dog keeps going off a frame, and he could very well be licking himself like he was talking. It's funny because it's true.
Maybe.
Me and Doc gonna meet in the middle and have some fun tonight, ain't we, Doc?
Hell yeah. That's right.
Sandra Johnson said, I had a great evil happen to me one night, and on the way home I was attacked with my window partly down, going slow down a dirt road, and this wolf head was in my passenger window, snarling and slobbering. I would love to hear that whole story. That would be fantastic. If you wouldn't mind reaching out to me, I would love to hear that story.
No.
I can't see the moon. Can I?
Well, I was hearing that kind of a scratching sound, but it could have just been you, dragging your butt on the floor.
That's probably what it was.
No.
And that's Mark mentioned the first kill, and that's not what I was going to say about it being your closest loved ones. But I was going to say a lot of the legends that I've heard is the longer you hold off killing humans, the longer you stay in control. Once you make your first human kill, that's that kind of that bridge that you cross that where you're maybe not necessarily where you can't turn back into human form, but you start going down that path to the more the Ulonga Doglala path, the dark path that you can't come back from,
Right.
or it's very hard to come back from.
Well, it's like the story of the Wendigo, you know, the turning points when you eat human flesh.
Right.
Or go after a snowmobile.
That too.
Because I mean, you know, when you go rape a snowmobile, there's no coming back from that.
Well,
Once you
just
go
remember,
snowmobile, you never go back.
but you all just remember all the sense that everything are heightened, including the sex drive. You know, that snowmobile was looking mighty pretty.
It was teasing him.
Plus, it smelled like Doc.
That's right. That's my essence.
That's it.
That's what you call going off rails right there, Doc.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Right about the 1 hour mark. That's pretty close.
It is pretty close. Boys, I'll try to do things a little differently so we don't do them all at the end. Let's hear a little bit about Dark Angel Medical here at the top of the hour. That'll give a couple of us a chance to hit the bathroom and refresh our drinks, although I just got mine. So, Doc, why don't you tell us a little bit about about Dark Angel Medical?
I mean, I do that too.
Yeah, that
talk
too.
about Dark Angel Medical. Let him talk about Scalawag for a change.
Yeah, that'd be a switch up. And then, we'll give a couple of us a chance to hit the bathroom. I just finished a bourbon and Coke and could probably stand it.
I hope everything comes out all right.
I'm sure it will.
All right. So Dark Angel Medical, that's the company I've been running for about 12 years now. And if you or any of your friends, family need or want to get any information on medical training, or also a wide variety of kits, anything from minor trauma first aid to major trauma first aid to mass casualty kits, check us out at darkangelmedical.com. If you go over there and use the code cryptid25, that's going to be a 25% off code for your order. Our kits are also HSA, FSA eligible. And if you ever use one of our kits to save someone's life, just let us know and we will send you what you have used absolutely 100% free of charge. And that's called our Kit for Life Guarantee. So head over to darkangelmedical.com, check out our training schedule. We have online training. We also have some free online training that'll get you the information you need just to get started. And we recently just celebrated, as of yesterday, our 173rd save, which was pretty rad because they had it was actually posted online. It was a NYPD officer using one of our Dark Slim kits to treat a stabbing victim. So that was right there on his body cam. So it's pretty awesome to see that stuff getting used. So it's on our Instagram page, I believe. TacMed Solutions is the company that had it on their page. So head over to darkangelmedical.com, get a kit, get trained, and be the difference. That's all I got to say about that.
And I think that was also on, didn't you replay that video on your Facebook page or the Dark Angel Medical Facebook page? Because I think I watched that.
You're good.
It's pretty badass.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So there you go.
What the hell's going on with the
All done.
there we go.
It's we've upset the black satellite again.
Things are going crazy.
Here we are.
Got it. Heck yeah.
Wait. Wait.
Well, Doc, I'm ready to drink out of that fire hose in a couple of days.
Get a lot of info. Yeah, I'll be flying out there to South Kakalaki on Friday.
Doc, congratulations on 173. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I'm pretty happy about that. Kim Jones, I didn't realize Dark Angel Medical was real. It is indeed. We are
A lot
real
of the
good.
things you read about in my books are real things. I try to highlight. I carried a Dark Angel medical kit through most of my law enforcement career. I try to highlight real places, real things, not just because I like them, but because they're high quality. And I wouldn't trust my life to any other kit but Dark Angel. And yeah, I carry Scalawag knife every day. In fact, I got one of Ken Brock's blades with me generally most days as well. But I talk about the products because I believe in them.
I appreciate it.
I meant to tell you, Doc, it just hit me. I had a range day with a friend of mine while I was on vacation last week, and he picked me up in his truck, and we drove out to the range in the middle of nowhere. And I looked up, and he's got a trauma kit on his visor of his car, and I was like, "Well, that's a pretty cool kit." And he goes, "Yeah, I got online. Have you ever heard of Dark Angel Medical?" And I about spit out my soda that I was drinking. And I said, "Yeah, I have." And I said, "You know that Kerry Davis is a friend of mine." He goes, he looks at me and goes, "You're shitting me." I said, No. Apparently he's had the kit for a while.
That's
And
pretty awesome.
I was looking at that going, that looks so familiar to me. And, that was our kit to have down at the range, And
yeah.
so
Awesome.
I thought that was pretty badass.
That's good stuff right there. That's the kind of stuff I like to hear.
I've got a dark kit as part of my range bag kit, and I've got another dark kit that's in my camera bag. So when we go whether we go shooting videos or shooting pew pews, I've got a dark angel kit with me.
Can't never have too many trauma kits.
Damn right.
Yep.
Like I tell people, man, do you have a fire extinguisher in your house? Yes. Do you have a trauma kit in your house? Not really. Put a trauma kit beside every fire extinguisher. That way, if everybody knows where the fire extinguishers are, they'll also know where the trauma kits are. So it's a pretty good setup to have in your house and have stuff kind of strategically placed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So back to the subject of werewolves. Werewolves / dogmen. Do you think they're the same thing, or do you think dogmen and werewolf are totally different?
I think they're two different things.
Mm-hmm. I
agree. I may be partial
Robby, I
just
can't
because
hear you.
of. It's about time for Robby to lose his audio for a minute. Maybe I'm partial because this has been my opinion since this podcast started. I think that the dogman is always a dog man. They don't change back and forth, and I'm with you thinking that they are some kind of divergent evolution, from modern dogs. Honestly, I think they're the more feasible of the two. Like if you have to pick one to be realistic to exist, I would say that would be the most likely. But if the werewolves do exist, I think they're a different kind of critter. I think they're of the changing from one to the other, whether it be from some kind of supernatural thing to, viral process, different critter as far as I'm concerned.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What I was saying is I agree with Steve. I think that's a very good analogy. I think that they're two separate things. Personally, and Doc and I have had this conversation with just he and I. And I think a dogman is something that's just maybe like we've talked about before. That's just a hold off or an offshoot from a dire wolf.
Yeah.
But I think a werewolf is something that is either a curse or some type of supernatural type thing, not necessarily a skinwalker, because the skinwalker can appear to be a werewolf, but we know that that's not the only thing a skinwalker can be. A skinwalker can be anything it wants to be. It can appear as anything it wants to be. But, and we talked about it before, like people who have dogman encounters, and I'm using the term dogman. Some people say demon, hell beast, we're really scared. But like take your encounter, DA. You said you didn't feel like it was anything but an animal, right?
Right.
But there's other people who are like, so I think what you encountered was a true dogman, just an animal, just something that occurs naturally in nature. But there are people who run into werewolves that are, that supernatural type thing. And I've kind of kicked this around before. I know some people kind of push back against this, but my personal thing is, if a demon is going after you, it's going to appear to you as what you fear most. And if something like a werewolf is what you fear most, that's probably what you're going to see.
Or take that a step further. What if the people that have seen werewolves, demon werewolves, have already had a dogman encounter and it scared the holy shit out of them, and so that's now what they fear the most.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Steve. If deep down in your most buried subconscious, you've watched a bunch of werewolf movies or you've had that encounter with a dogman, and that is your deepest, most darkest subconscious fear, and if that thing is going after you, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
Nathan Finn says, so how would you know if you've encountered a werewolf or a dogman? You probably wouldn't unless you saw it change.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't stick around long enough to ask it.
Yeah.
One of those, So
here's a question for you boys. If werewolves and dogmen are separate things, that means we've accepted the fact that werewolves change. We've kind of just assumed that werewolves being different, they do change. So do you think the change is more supernatural in origin or a virus or virus in origin, viral?
Well, obviously, if I'm sticking with my guns on what I believe, then it's a supernatural thing. That doesn't mean that it can't be what we talked about earlier. And I mean, obviously, if it's supernatural and there's a demon involved, it can take its cues from anything. It could, it can make it be completely biological. But that doesn't mean that it's not supernatural that started it. If that makes any sense.
I would think it would depend on how rapid the transformation is. If it's transforming in a frame of time that you can physically see the change, it's going to almost have to be supernatural. I don't care how much metabolic energy you throw at it. A caterpillar doesn't turn into a butterfly at the snap of a finger.
Right.
You're looking at days worth of time, and the entire metabolic energy from its life for that critter to turn into a butterfly. Butterflies aren't butterflies for very long.
So you're leaning more toward that thought, like the thought potato video, where the humanoparvovirus causes the change over 6 to 8 weeks, and there's no coming back.
I would believe in. I could more easily believe in werewolves being a thought potato werewolf than a supernatural werewolf. Now, if the recounts you hear are, you're witnessing a change, I am totally on board with it potentially being supernatural. I believe there is a supernatural, and I'd like to believe in a universe where anything's possible.
But that's the thing.
So I want to see it.
We're like you said, if you're watching a la Silver Bullet, any of those kind of movies that you want to throw out where it's happening like that, with what we've talked about tonight, the things that your body would have to go through, obviously there's got to be something at work above and beyond just, hey, okay, this guy's a werewolf.
Thank you.
But so you have to suspend that disbelief and say, okay, there's forces at work outside of what I know up here that are causing this. So, but if we're already in this conversation, we got to kind of think that anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, Doc's been awful quiet.
I've just been listening to y'all. No, I mean, I for a werewolf, I believe it. To me, I believe it's a supernatural component. And then for the hold on a second. Can y'all move that question down? Because this is right in the middle of my face.
Yeah, it should be popped off now.
Thank you.
It's on now.
You know, I mean, for werewolf, I think it's more supernatural. For the dogman, I mean, it comes from, we've got so much old ancient stories about the cynocephaly, things like that. But there could there be an evolutionary or a scientific component to it? Absolutely. Could there, depending on, in the First Nation, indigenous Native Americans, could there be? Is there a supernatural component to it too? Sure. Look at the stories. I mean, the spirit world is not scientific at all. Yeah. I mean, it's the spirit world. So there's a supernatural component to the dogman as well. So do I think the original dogman? Yeah. Well, do I think the original dogman theory, like the cynocephaly, is a scientific thing, evolutionary thing? Yeah. But the ones I think you are alluding to, could be a supernatural, especially in the books. It's a supernatural aspect to it. So it could be both sides. Bye, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
I think he's back.
And Doc makes a really good point as far as and it's like I said earlier, if we're in this conversation right now and we're serious about this conversation, we have to have some type of suspension of our disbelief of what really goes on in this world.
Absolutely.
To have this serious conversation to start with. So that being said, I think it circles back around to what we started talking about at first. Is it really depends on what you yourself believe. If you believe that there's two different things, that there's dogmen and there's werewolves, and they're two separate things, then you have to say, okay, a dogman has got to be, because there can't, if there's that disconnect of being two separate things, then one has to be a naturally occurring thing. The other has to be supernatural. They can't be two separate things and both of them be naturally occurring. That doesn't, because if they are, then they're the same thing. There has to be a disconnect. There has to be some type of supernatural, spiritual type element to one of them versus the other. If you believe that. Now, if you believe they're the same thing, then they're the same thing, and it's just people have just spun their own tales and added their own flair to these myths and legends and things over which we know happens. So I guess it really it just wherever your mind is and what you believe is where you have to start. And like I said, I believe that they're two separate things. So obviously I believe that there is some type of supernatural element to one of them.
Right.
And
Randy Petticourt says, how do you tell the difference between a skinwalker, dogman, and werewolves when you encounter one or when you're looking at it?
Well, for one, a skinwalker doesn't necessarily have to look like a wolf or any kind of were creature. It can look like just a regular dog, it can look like a bird, it can look like another human, pretty much anything it wants to. And I Hollywood we've got Hollywood to thank for lumping skinwalkers in with, that. Yes, are they shapeshifters? Yes, but they're not shapeshifters in the sense that a werewolf is a shapeshifter. A werewolf goes back and forth between human and wolf. That's it. Or human and bear. It's not. You're not going to have a werewolf that's going to be the wolf one night and a bear the next night and a jaguar the night after that. It's
right.
either
Where things go from human to one critter.
Right.
Yeah. It's one. It's human to wolf, human to grizzly bear, human to polar bear, human to jack, whatever it is, and it's that all the time. A skinwalker can be anything it wants to be. So you got to kind of that's you have to separate the skinwalker from dogman and werewolf. It's not the same thing. It is a skinwalker is a person that has done something so dark, so evil, so they'll never come back from that. They can pretty much they have the power to do pretty much anything they want to do.
Right.
And
Miss Lene asked about hypertrichosis.
Mm.
What do you guys think about that?
Well, I kind of mentioned that at the beginning of the show. If you ever see any pictures of anybody with hypertrichosis, they look very much like Lon Chaney's portrayal of the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
They're all covered in hair. I've seen a case in the hospital already. What was that, Doc? I'm sorry.
The Wolf Boys in Mexico that were part of that circus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They end up at freak shows.
Rodriguez, I think was their name.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that would certainly change, shift my paradigm if I didn't have the medical knowledge and saw that.
And that's something to think about too. Go back, 100 years when there was not the medical knowledge that we got now, and you see somebody like that walking around, what are you going to think?
Yeah. Well, and if we were burning people for being witches, a couple hundred years ago for much more minor things than that, what would we think if we saw those?
Well, they had werewolf trials too.
True.
The Salem witch trials get a lot of publicity because but there was, especially in Eastern Europe, there was a lot of people. There was probably as many, if not more, people who got killed for being werewolves in Eastern Europe and Western Europe than got killed in the Salem witch trials. It's just we don't hear about it as much because we're over here, and that's what's the Salem witch trials. Salem witch trials. That's all we hear about. But Peter Stoop. What was the kid's name that they ended up letting him stay in the monastery? I can't remember his name, but those are two of the most famous ones. But there was like hundreds upon hundreds of people that they tortured into confessing that they were werewolves. I mean, what do you expect?
People will say anything to get you to stop torturing them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I'm talking like some of the stuff that they would do is they would, I got a set of tongs out there that I use for blacksmithing. They would heat those up. They called them pinchers, but they would heat them up to red hot and just go in and pull pieces of their skin off of them. Yeah. Until they finally said, "Yes, I'm a werewolf. I made a deal with the devil. Okay, you're forgiven," and then kill them.
Yep. That's got to be a relief, though.
Thanks for nothing there, bud.
Karen Polson says, or would the werewolf be a gugway?
Well, we have talked about that list that they put out, the top 3, possibly being something like that.
Gugway instead of.
Yeah. Instead of
guys, I'm going to try changing the cameras around a little bit so we can still see each other. But it's not letting me. There we go. Let's do that. That way we've got our faces all up and nobody's getting words over their face.
Bye.
I look better behind the words, though.
Randy Petticourt says, can a werewolf change from werewolf to wolf?
Now, I actually have heard Wolf with Jack Nicholson, like we've been talking about, he kind of back and forth between the Lon Chaney type Wolfman the first few times he turned, but he got kind of wolfier as the transformations went, and he ended up turning into just a regular wolf at the end of the movie. So,
yeah.
That's funny, Ken.
Oh, Lord. Shots fired.
What, did he say something about me again?
He was asking if that was thongs you were talking about.
There it is, Robbie.
Thongs.
No, tongs, Ken. I know you don't use them because you use stock removal.
I just
But
don't want to see anything like that next weekend in South Carolina.
Or in December in Missouri.
Correct.
Don't want to let that cat out of the bag just yet.
I don't know what you're talking about.
me either.
Oh, I heard a cork getting pulled.
Yeah, that's how you summon Doc. You just pull a cork.
Well, I always thought the same thing about you there, DA. But
That's
you know,
true.
if
Yes,
Doc,
but it has
opened
to
the
be from
cork, you would
Irish
suddenly-
whiskey.
Yeah, you would suddenly disapparate and appear in Colorado.
Pretty accurate.
Hey, I'm not a whole lot better. You know, we every once in a while, one of the doctors will give me some kind of a whiskey sample. And my boss the other day was talking about how she was having such a bad day, she really needs some whiskey. And I'm like, I've got scotch in my locker. She kind of looked at me. She's like, "Why do you have scotch in your locker?" And one of my coworkers who knew why I had it goes, "We don't talk about it. Just leave it alone."
My question would be, why don't you have scotch in your locker?
Exactly. You know,
Just saying. All right, what are we
it
talking?
steadies my hands before I'm sewing something. Fixes my palsy.
What are we talking about now?
Sorry, I was answering something.
We waiting on DA to get us back on track.
Yeah,
All it took was the pop of a cork.
that'll do it. We all get excited when we hear a good cork pop. So werewolves, boys. Werewolves. If given the opportunity, like knowing that the transformation would fix damage done to you or maybe even extend your life, would you take the curse?
Yes.
I would say, depending on what it entailed.
So I'm already halfway there anyway.
I was going to say y'all are further along than me. But
I'm in.
Would it
I
make
don't
you
know.
taller?
Probably.
It's either that or you become a were Pomeranian. So yeah.
Damn it. Yeah, see, that'd be a no go.
Talk about
Yeah, I was going to say you're yipping.
Exactly. I'm like freaking Scrappy Doo. Son of
You're
The
running
purse
around over the
werewolf.
legs of everybody.
a freaking hated Scrappy Doo too.
He's a purse werewolf.
Annoyingly. God.
Doc, if that happened and you turn into a were Pomeranian, I will put you in a man purse and I'll carry you around for emotional support.
Throw me into a silver grinder, man. Just be done.
you can sit on my shoulder, Doc, and we'll double team them.
Oh, that's amazing.
I've got a super chat from David By. It says, Steve, if you need to take some rheumatism medicine for stitching me, go right ahead.
I only use the scotch for medicinal purposes. It's a damn shame I'm sick all the time.
I'm gonna wash a little of your wound out with it. Give me a little bit.
A little shot for you, a little shot for me.
All right.
But yes, sign me up because that's, y'all know me, werewolves are always my number one favorite monster anyway. I've seen every freaking B horror werewolf movie probably ever made.
I've wanted to be a werewolf since I saw the campfire scene in The Howling. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'd rather be a vampire than a werewolf, but if I had to take the curse, I would, because you're pretty badass.
Yeah, I would almost have to go with you there. You know, if everybody's got like their favorite superhero, and on the DC side, I've always wanted to be the Flash. I always thought that was fascinating how you could perceive things faster than everybody and whatever. But on the Marvel side, it was always Wolverine, hands down. I love that healing factor.
Well,
And
going with that, Steve. That's a really good segue because Captain America is my favorite superhero. Werewolves my favorite monster. Well, there was a comic where Captain America turned into a werewolf.
Yes, there was.
So see, it's predestined. I mean, I got to be a werewolf.
There you go.
I got to be Captain America as a werewolf. Catwolf.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. And I know this is not necessarily related to werewolves per se, but more to my books. What would you guys say to seeing some of the Apex Predator style changing in Dark Frontiers?
Well, that would be cool.
Sign Jed up.
I'm down with it.
I think
Okay,
Jed
I
and Doc
agree.
would make good werewolves.
Like a fat kid on a seesaw.
Mark Napier says you guys forget that your closest loved ones are usually your first victims.
That's
I
only
think
in,
if I knew
some
I
of the
was going to
tales.
change, I would probably go find myself a place out in the deep woods to stay until I was done.
Plus, I ain't got nobody
Yeah.
lives with me, Mark. I ain't got to worry about it.
Angie would stab me.
Even as a
I-
werewolf,
I-
Doc's still scared of her.
Yeah.
I was
If
gonna
you're not
say-
scared of her, you're not in your right mind. She's little, but she,
Well, that's where I'm at. I mean, Rachel won't even let me grow a beard. You think she's going to let me have all kind of body hair?
She's going to hold you down, put you in a headlock, and shave you.
You know, Rachel is the female version of the tactical midget. You know, she's about 5 feet tall and terrifying. So I wouldn't mess with her.
Ken Brock's got a good question. He says, if I can put it up. He says, if they can change, God dang it. He says, if they can change in the Dark Frontiers era, would that have an effect on their offspring? Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Mm.
Well, Doc already changes in the modern era anyway.
Doc, we can't hear you.
Caught that though.
We were able to read your lips, though.
It's his turn now.
The satellite got Doc. It may be because it's snowing where he's at. He may have been having some internet signals. Doc, try to reset your browser.
Yeah. It could be that Wendigo that's dry humping his cable box too.
He's got a Wendigo outside ripping his internet box off the wall.
Yeah.
David By says Jay Matoska. Jay Matoska was around in that time, so don't think it's not possible.
David Neal made a good point. He said from what he read of Angie in the books that we should be terrified.
I mean, I'm not talking shit about my wife. She's sweet as can be, but I'm gonna tell you what, I'm glad she's on my 6. You know what I'm saying? So though she be little, she be fierce.
First the snowmobiles, now the electrical meter.
Yeah, she's only about 5'1".
Yep, she's wee and mighty like my wife.
Yeah, she'll definitely juke something. That's for sure. You give her a knife.
Boys, we're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of the hour. Robby, why don't you tell us a little bit about Scalawag Tactical?
Sure thing.
Awesome.
Awesome. Scalawag Tactical is another one of our affiliates from a veteran-owned company. They make fixed blade, folding, kitchen knives, fillet knife. I mean, just pretty any kind of tactical knives, any kind of knives that you want and need to use in your everyday world, whatever that world is. You got things like the Jolly Roger, which this is my go to the shop knife. Basically, I carry this when I'm working. DA's got the mini jack with, got a nice little engraving on the side there, DA.
Yeah, a little Wild Hunt logo on the back.
Wild Hunt logo on it.
Well, look at that.
Would you look at that?
Ooh, piece of candy. Doc, Steve, y'all send y'all's this way. Y'all's might get something like that on there.
Ooh.
But
my mini jack goes to work with me every day, and
Yep.
I get compliments on it all the time.
that's the Dew Claw. Like I said, I've got three knives that go with me. This is the shop knife. This is my utility working, cutting boxes open. I get a lot of orders from Amazon for the laser engrave. That was weird. I just quit that.
Well, I was trying to make you the largest camera since you're doing the talking. There
Well,
we
I'm
go.
already the
Oh,
largest guy. Don't make me the largest camera. Ah. Anyway,
That's all right. Everybody looks bigger on television. Don't worry about it.
well, this camera's adding 50 pounds, and I don't need the extra 50 pounds. Anyway, I get a lot of orders from the laser engraving and all that stuff. So this thing cuts a lot of cardboard boxes, things like that. Still never had to put a knife or a sharpener on it. It's great. It's cut me a couple times. Yeah, DA and I are the award recipients of those two get cut on camera awards. What would that be, Doc? The Darwin Awards.
Yeah,
Idiot awards.
Yeah,
So, because these knives will cut you three ways, Doc.
long, deep, and continuous.
Thank you. I've had to do that by myself last couple times, so I'm glad you're back to do it this time. Greg's a great guy. He is one of those. If you go buy one of these Gerbers or Kershaw's or Spyderco, anything, you just a number. You just somebody who bought one of their knives. They don't care. Steve's got a great story. I love, and I'm not picking on Steve. I love the story that Steve's got about this because he made a mistake, and he knows he made a mistake about it. And he called Greg and said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." And Craig's like, "Yeah, you did," but he took care of it, and he made a customer for life with Steve.
Oh yeah, I bought 3 knives since then.
Yeah, because he took time to explain it to him. Number one, and number two, he fixed it, which he didn't have to. And Steve will say that himself. He didn't have to do what he did, but he did because he wants your business and he takes care of you and he takes care of his customers. And that kind of stuff is what we like. Veteran owned. If you've read DA's books, you'll hear Jolly Roger, you'll hear Privateer, you'll hear Gunner's Mate, you'll hear Bounty, you'll hear Boarding Axe. All those knives are in DA's books, but they're in there for reasons because they're great quality blades that we all have one or more of those blades ourselves. So, and they also have something called the blemish blade section, which 9 times out of 10 is just the box is messed up. So you can get these knives. This knife was $15, which is normally $45. So go check out the blemish blades. Pick you out a good knife. Sometimes you can look out and find a really good knife, like the Gunner's Mate has been in there a time or two. But they're
Gunner's Mate's on sale right now for $149.
I was just about to say they're running a pretty good sale on the Gunner's Mate right now, anyway. So
that is my favorite knife they have.
Yeah, very good knife. So once you find whatever knife you want, even if it's in the blemish blade section, when you go check out, use code DA Roberts 10 and get yourself an extra 10% off of that. And that way, if you've already went and got your Dark Angel medical kit, inevitably, when you pull a DA or a Robby and cut yourself with this knife, you'll have your Dark Angel medical kit. Take care of your boo-boo.
Correct.
Yep. Be careful cutting yourself with a Scalawag or a Brock's Blades knife, though, because it's pretty much half of the ritual to become a werewolf.
And
pretty much.
And that's all I got to say about that.
I want to get a Gunner's Mate because my Gunner's Mate is silver and black. I want to get a solid color Gunner's Mate and get the Wild Hunt logo on one side and the Dark Frontiers logo on the other.
Well, you send it to me. I can put it on there for you.
Well, I get the money. I'll probably make that purchase. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen for a bit.
Yeah. As far as those knives and the med kits go, there's a reason that the Wild Hunt team carries those. They've got a black budget that allows them to have some the best toys in the market. So they're going to have Dark Angel kits and Brock's blades and Scalawag tactical blades.
Yes.
Kim Jones says, DA, do you have the Wild Hunt logo stickers for sale? I believe there are some Wild Hunt stickers available on the merch store. If not, give me a little bit and we'll get that straightened out. David By says, DA, did you get your chair? No, I've had to hold off on it. It's on back order. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit before I get it. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, though. Um, look and see if I missed any questions.
So
I
the
don't
chat
think
goes
I
a little
did.
quick to keep up with.
Noah's been doing a banging job getting questions up for us. Thanks, Noah. And then the mods are kicking butt tonight. Thank you, guys. What do you guys think of the polls that have been popping up tonight? I think those are a great addition. Noah did a great job on those.
I've been participating in them.
Me too.
Me too.
I don't multitask well enough.
I want you
It's requiring too much of my attention to talk and drink at the same time.
Oh, Doc ran off. Hold on.
Roxanne says, "DA, when you're going to show your swords?" I would love to, but they're on the other side of the green screen, so I can't really get to them at the moment.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Doc, you kill me, brother.
Oh, right.
Oh, just right there. I was grabbing something on my fridge.
No, that's funny. I'm not sure if I'm going to survive. December.
Well, you get the four of us together in one space with a camera in the background. God knows what's going to happen.
Hilarity will ensue.
Listen,
So
me, Doc, and Ken got to survive November before we make it to December.
Hey, guys, what do you guys think of this?
Well, that's pretty.
I like it.
That's pretty.
Did he cry when he burned his pee on Doc's snowmobile?
Yeah, that's it. Well, that would have been in 1856, 1865. So long before the invention of the snowmobile.
I mean,
Samhain 11 says, any opinions on the Moorbach monster legend in Germany? I'm not familiar with that one.
What's it doing to me?
I never heard of it.
Ken says there are no snowmobiles in that era. Is the Wendigo going to have carnal knowledge of Doc's horse?
Lord, I hope not.
Going to have to ride that thing home.
as long as it ain't while Doc's riding it, we all right.
We'll give that horse some silver horseshoes.
There you go.
Nerve-wracking sons of...
Like playing cards with my
brother's kids.
I was thinking, so when my brother and sister and I get together, we're all on paper relatively intelligent individuals, but you put the three of us together and we're stupid as hell. And my dad refers to it as the theory of relatives, and it basically says if you put the three of us together, you multiply our IQs together and take the inverse of it, and that's what our resulting IQ is when we're all together.
How many times did Annette tell us to shut up that weekend in Gatlinburg, DA?
Like constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say the three of you guys are like brothers to me, so the theory of relatives still applies. It still applies, Four of us together would be a little ridiculous.
See, Ken like that. He's silver horseshoes and teaching the horses to fight could be a nice plot for the books. There,
that's already something I've been working on. I've already been mentioning that he's had Miss Lene train the horses to not react to both Bigfoot and Dogman skins, and these are combat trained horses. So I think we're going to see more out of the horses in this book, especially Biscuit.
Oh, Biscuit.
Old Bisquick.
Well, boys, I've got a question for you. I think we've pretty well covered werewolf topic. I think we've talked about the possibility of it being, something more than just natural. That it could also be a virus. We don't have enough information to know for sure, but I think we've covered the topic. How about we discuss? Have one of you boys? I'll say have Doc, since he's got the ones to show it off. Have one of you guys have Doc talk about Brock blades, and I prep a bit of the work in progress for you guys who might like to hear it.
Get after it, Doc.
All right. So Brock blades. You have seen his knives just like you've seen my kits, and you've seen the Scalawag tactical knives in his and DA's books. Ken Brock's a veteran law enforcement officer, 30-year retired tactical midget on the SWAT teams. And, we love the Scalawag knives. They are a mass-produced knife. And one thing I do love about Ken's knives is that every single one of them is a hand-forged, handmade work of art. And no two knives are going to be the exact same, which is really cool about it. If you head over to brockblades.com and use cryptid10, you'll get 10% off your order. And if you see a blade that you like, but it's not in stock, don't fret. Just shoot him an email and say, hey, next time you run some of these blades, I'd like one. He'll get you in the queue for that. He has a wide variety of blades. You've seen Will Gregg will use the Ardennes blade. This is one of my favorite little blades I got from him. It's called the Street Weasel. I just like saying it. He's got several other really awesome knives in his store. And if you buy one, you're not going to go wrong because these knives are super well made, super durable. This is my everyday carry fixed blade right here, and wouldn't leave home without it. So y'all head over to brockblades.com. Tell them we sent you from the DAX Machination, and you'll be glad you did.
Absolutely. Well,
Sweet.
boys, as promised, I have something prepped. I'm not going to read the entire thing. And this hasn't even gone out to the alpha readers yet. This is about as rough drafts get. I'm going to read you guys part of the prologue of Dark Frontiers, Cry of the Wendigo. You guys want to hear it?
Yes.
No.
Yes, please.
Doc says no.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
listen to him.
Again, this is the prologue. This is only part of the prologue from Dark Frontiers, Cry of the Wendigo. I always put a quote at the beginning of them, and I like this one. I think it's kind of significant. It says there are basically two types of people who accomplish things and people who claim to have accomplished things. The first group is less crowded. Mark Twain. March 21st, 1400 hours, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Clark sat at his desk in his office reading a copy of the most recent journals they'd recovered. Declan Kane was a meticulous records keeper, and Clark was not only impressed with his observations, but also with how he figured out things that had taken them numerous encounters to notice. Kane and his men were damn good at what they did. Got a second, Major? Said Gideon from the door. Yeah, come on in, said Clark, grinning as he looked up. How's the leg? Asked Gideon, sliding into one of the chairs in front of Clark's desk. Mostly healed, replied Clark. I should be cleared for full duty by my next checkup. Doc Olivetti is impressed with my progress. These folks at Project Olympus have some damn good doctors. It's a good thing, too, said Gideon with a smirk. It's just not the same without Thunder God with us in the field. Thankfully, we haven't had any deployments, added Clark. Just field training. I'll have to get back in the field to get my edge back. Oh, I seriously doubt you've lost your edge, replied Gideon. Clark grinned as he sat down the file that he'd been reading. So, what do you think? Asked Gideon. I take it that you've read it, replied Clark. I have, said Gideon, but I'm curious to know what you thought of it. Well, if we were normal people, said Clark, leaning back in his desk chair, I think it was completely insane. But since I'm here talking to a Roman centurion who's been kicking around for the last couple thousand years, and I've actually met Odin, then I guess we've got to take it at face value. If Declan Kane's journals are right, we've got a much bigger enemy out there than we ever believed possible. Declan was never one for telling tall tales or exaggeration, said Gideon. He's a lot like you in that regard. Do you think we can assume he's already taken care of all the denarius coins and the other demons? Asked Clark. It's entirely possible, said Gideon, but with our track record, we've got to be prepared for the possibility of more of them being out there. Hell, they're probably behind the Ouroboros Society. That would make a lot of sense, replied Clark. That would also make sense when you look back at the history of World War II. It makes sense when you look back at the last 2,000 years, corrected Gideon. War has only gotten worse with improved technology. I don't know if we can blame all that on the demons, said Clark, shaking his head. Throughout the history of man, the one thing we've always been good at was killing each other. You're not wrong, replied Gideon with a frown. They sat quietly for a moment before Gideon spoke up. So what do we do now? Asked Gideon. How do we use this information? Well, I can't say what General Dalton or anyone else or anyone that far up the food chain is going to say, replied Clark. But we'd better damn well be prepared to face this. What weapons do we have to have that can face down a damn demon? Well, my spear for one, said Gideon with a shrug. Granted, said Clark, I'm willing to bet my hammer will put a serious amount of hurt on one. Might not kill one, but it'll damn sure think twice about coming back for more. Yeah, agreed Gideon. I'd say that Davidson's sword would do the job. Probably Father Marcus's as well. I would assume so, said Clark. What's the story with Davidson? Added Clark. There's something there that he's not telling us. I'm sorry, said Gideon. It's not my place to say. He'll tell you when he's ready. You know, don't you? Asked Clark, leaning forward. How long have you known? Oh, I'd say for the better part of... Gideon stopped himself. I shouldn't say. It's been a long time. I didn't recognize him when he first came to the unit. Then it hit me. We'd met before, but it had been a while. Don't you think this is something I should know? Asked Clark. I do, said Gideon, but it's not my secret to tell. Well, please let Davidson know that I'd very much like to hear the story, said Clark, especially if I should be factoring that into my decisions about how to face not only the Ouroboros Society, but these demons as well. I'll talk to him, said Gideon. Is it bad? Asked Clark. Can I count on him being one of the good guys? You know I'd have warned you if it was bad, said Gideon. I wouldn't keep that from you. But rest assured, Davidson's one of the good guys. I'll bet my spear on it. Clark stared at him for a long moment before speaking. All right, he said. That's good enough for now. I don't want to be kept in the dark on this much longer. So what do you think our next move should be? Honestly, asked Gideon. No, frickin' lie to me, said Clark, chuckling. You already know what I think, said Gideon, getting up and taking a bottle of water from the mini fridge. Reflexively, he tossed one to Clark, who deftly caught it and sat it on the desk. We've got to find Declan Kane, said Clark.
That's it?
That's where I'm stopping. I've got more.
Damn you.
Hmm.
I like it. I like it. I mean, me and Davidson might be kin, because that's my clan. Who knows?
Well, I know who Davidson is. I just haven't revealed it yet. There are 3 people that know who Davidson is. Me, Josh Dalton, and one other I'm not going to name because somebody will start asking him questions.
Now, you said I was close when I asked you.
You were pretty close.
At this point, I'm thinking I need to pour you a few South Bostons over at Steve's Pub and to grab to loosen your lips up.
That has not even had an editing program ran over it. That is as rough gets. That is the brand new work in progress.
I like where it's going.
For those of you who are members of the Patreon, the entire prologue will be up probably by the end of the week. Someone summoned Doc. Pull a cork, quick!
There he is.
I had to go refill my water bottle. I figured that was going to occur.
I gotta say, I'm drinking out of a decanter tonight, so it doesn't make any noise.
It's just swigging straight out of the decanter.
Oh no, not directly out of it. But unfortunately, it's not
know-
quite the same effect when you're trying to attract Doc. You know.
I just
Thank
want
you,
to know
Miss Lene.
when the modern guys that are ancestors of the Dark Frontier guys are going to get let in on the secret of what's going on.
Well, that may happen sooner than you think.
Because there's a whole other Doc and Jed thing running around out there that hadn't even been.
I've already got that planned out. Already know how that's going to turn out, and it'll happen in this book.
You hear that, Doc?
I'm waiting for it.
We get to continue our quips in the modern era.
That would be fun. I would like that.
See, now I'm a little jealous because my ancestor is part of the Dark Frontiers team, but my current form is a bartender.
Well, he owns a store in Dark Frontiers. He just goes out and shoots people.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Aha! Aha!
Aha.
You know if I'm funny.
So, folks, if you're a member of the Patreon, look for that entire prologue for Dark Frontiers: Cry of the Wendigo. That should be up by the end of the week, and I don't mean Sunday. I mean the end of next week. I want to try to get it cleaned up in a little bit, edited better, and then put it up there.
Thank you again. I did that just for you.
See, I am thinking that at some point we need to have Ken make an appearance in the Wild Hunt.
That's going to happen too. Ken and I have already talked about that.
Because
Yep.
that would be legendary.
As much as this pains me to say, Ken actually can write pretty good.
Yes, Ken wrote a little basically a chapter introducing himself, and if Ken doesn't care, I'm going to use it. I mean, not necessarily verbatim, but almost word for word, as he wrote something that, to be honest, reads very much something like I write. If I didn't know Ken wrote it, I would think, where did I write this?
He did a pretty good job on that.
He wrote very much in my style.
I was impressed.
It was very good.
I mean, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Ken in real life, but just interacting with his comments in the chat, he's quirky. He thinks fast. It's fun. I like it.
It's nice. It's very nice.
Nice. It's very nice.
Very nice.
Really nice, Clark.
That's right.
Hey, if you wouldn't mind, get yourself something really nice there, Clark.
It's a quality item.
It's a quality item. There you go.
Don't you go fall in love with that, Clark. It's leaving when to hear us when we leave here next month.
D says, DA, you can't leave me like this. I won't be able to sleep. What do you think, guys? Should I do another page?
Yes.
That is completely up to you, sir. I'm drinking scotch, so I'll sleep fine tonight.
Yeah, 2 more minutes.
Okay. I'll do another page. Let's see. Where did I stop?
Forever.
We've got to find Declan Kane, said Clark. Gideon raised his bottle of water in a salute before taking a long drink. Where do we even start? Asked Clark. I've got a few ideas, said Gideon, but if he doesn't want to be found, it's not going to be easy. Should I put in some inquiries with the U.S. Marshals? Asked Clark. Would it do any good? Replied Gideon. Besides, what are you going to ask? Do you know the location of a guy born in the mid-1800s who fought in the Civil War and once hunted monsters for you? Said Clark with a grin, that was exactly what I was going to ask. Gideon chuckled. So where should we start looking? Asked Clark. I would bet he already knows we're looking for him, said Gideon. I bet he found out as soon as we started digging up his old homestead. You think he's still keeping an eye on the place? Asked Clark. I would if I was him, answered Gideon, especially if I thought I'd left something there that might be valuable, like these journals we found. Then do we wait for him to come to us? Asked Clark. No, said Gideon. Declan's like us. He's a man of certain habits. Much like your cabin, he's got a place that's away from people and most of society, probably much like the one he had before. And where would you find a place like that? Asked Clark. My guess, said Gideon, if he's still in the United States, we're going to find him either in Montana or Wyoming. Not a lot of people and big horse ranches go unnoticed by the rest of society. And if he's not in the U.S., asked Clark. I don't know, replied Gideon. Maybe Australia or Argentina, someplace with a lot of land and a place he can raise horses. You keep saying horses, said Clark. Do you think he's still doing that? I'd put money on it, said Gideon. That boy always had an affinity for horses. His horse Biscuit was so well trained that they almost seemed like they could read each other's thoughts. My money says he's still got a bunch of horses that are descendants of Biscuit, probably a whole herd of them. Well, it's a place to start, said Clark. I'll start looking for large horse ranches in Montana and Wyoming that fit the criteria. Why not Texas? Declan's Irish, said Gideon. He'll prefer a climate much more like Ireland. Texas is too hot. He wouldn't like it there. You think so? Asked Clark. That's exactly why they chose Missouri in the first place, said Gideon. The climate reminded them of home. There's too many people in Missouri now. He'd want more wide open spaces and less people. Well, let's see what the old internet has to say, says Clark, activating his browser and typing in some keywords. After refining his attempt several times, he brought up a listing for a ranch in northern Montana. Take a look at this, said Clark, motioning for Gideon to come around the desk. Gideon stepped to where he could see the computer monitor. On the screen was a logo for a horse ranch with an address from Babb, Montana. Ipana Farms was the name, but the logo was what stood out. It was a rearing stallion with a flowing mane. Notice something about that logo, said Clark. That's a blue roan, said Gideon. It can't be that easy, said Clark. Did we really just find him? Epona is the Celtic goddess of horses. We never would have found it if you hadn't zeroed in on that horses, said Gideon. I never would have thought to use that as part of my search criteria. So now what? Asked Clark. Feeling up to a road trip? Asked Gideon. Yeah, said Clark. Let's clear it with Levi. Think we should take someone else with us? I don't think we'd have any trouble from Declan, said Gideon, but we might not be the only ones looking for him. So yeah, we might want to take one or two more people with us. Why don't you grab Valkyrie, Margolin, and Kodiak, said Clark. I'll brief Levi and start making travel plans. Are we planning on driving? Asked Gideon. No, said Clark. There's a lake near Babb. We'll take Clark's goose, my old Catalina PBY. I'll arrange for vehicles to be waiting for us when we land. Outstanding, said Gideon. I'll get everyone together and grab our equipment. Be ready to leave within the hour, said Clark. We're heading for Montana. Here's hoping this isn't a wild goose chase. And that's where I will stop.
I like it.
Sweet.
I like it a lot. Like my daddy used to say, if I don't light your fire, your wood's wet.
There you go.
I'm pretty excited. These Dark Frontiers books just, I don't know, they just flow.
Well, you're batting 1,000 on them. I mean, I'm a little miffed that I'm not getting more Wild Hunt, but you know, I'm kind of getting it.
It's good stuff. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, Josh, thanks for 21 months, man. Thank you. That's awesome. That again, that's not all I have written. That prologue is going to be pretty long, and the epilogue is where past meets present. So it's going to be at the end of the book where they actually meet their counterparts.
That's cool.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
Well, hopefully, if it ever comes to pass, Declan will approve of the South Boston.
I'm sure he would. I'm sure Declan would like that a lot. Speaking of that.
That's awesome.
That way.
You know, that
Robby made that.
Without the engraving, it looks like the very same flask that Amazon suggested when I started downloading your books.
I have another one too.
I think it is the same flask. Yeah, when I bought the first Wild Hunt book, Codename Wild Hunt, what was it, Odin's Call? Is that the subtitle?
Yes, that's the first one.
Amazon goes, people who bought this also bought, and it shows that flask without the engraving.
Hey, Doc, don't you got one in glass too?
Yeah, it's upstairs in a drying rack.
Mm,
Means it's been
that's
used,
funny.
right?
I don't have such a flask.
Hey, I think I know a guy, Steve.
You know,
that
a guy?
might be happening sooner than you think, Steve.
I know a guy that might have one that might
In December.
You might want to hook me up with your people.
Let me make a phone call. Let me make a phone call. And I might can work something out for December.
Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
Angie brought this to me.
Nice.
Oh,
Doc.
that's awesome. I don't care what people say. I like Angie.
I do too. She's awesome.
I think so.
I got one that says Jed somewhere in there. But I got something else too, DA. You want me to show it?
Oh, absolutely. I love how that came out on that leather.
That's pretty.
Don't that look like something that they may have dug up, had that Declan may have done?
It just needs the Dark Frontiers logo on it.
Yeah.
That one's still hard to see in the light.
I know
though.
it's still hard to see, but it's there.
The
You
Dark
see it
Angel
real
logo.
You see it real life, and this has got the
I can't see it.
which one did I put in this one? I think I put the Nightmare. It's got the Nightmare Hunter Journal. Wrong way, that way. Nightmare Hunter Journal. So some more items that Lone Wolf Customs has put in. That turned out really good. That's probably one of the. All joking aside, you know, I know we're goofing off tonight, but I think that's probably one of the best logos that
That
I've
is
done.
absolutely badass. So should we consider Lone Wolf Customs to be an affiliate now?
What? Sort of.
Well,
They're either an affiliate or a subsidiary, one of the two.
we got other stuff too.
I'll be right back.
There you go.
I got. I like that Wild Hunt one. That came out really good.
Yeah.
So did the Dark Angel. Those look really nice.
So that's up to DA to decide that part, Steve. So you know, tis what it is.
May have to do a Wild Hunt General Dalton one.
There you go.
General, give me a some kind of logo, and then the General can get some love.
The Wild
General-
Hunt logo, of course.
Yeah,
You know, the general would just drink Jack Daniels out of it anyway, so you know,
True.
that's just sacrilegious.
General, did you or did you not approve this logo? If you approve this logo as the Wild Hunt patch, then that's your love right there, buddy. Number love, General. I know I'm just a lowly sergeant in the group, but you know that's. Thanks, Dooms.
Thanks, sir. Boys, we are after the 2-hour mark. I want to take a minute to remind folks about the 22 a Day Foundation. Folks, we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. I've had too many friends buried under a folded flag, so this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm a very proud supporter of our veterans and law enforcement. You know, every man and woman that's put on a uniform to keep us safe and keep us free, it deserves our respect and our utmost thanks. Because as the saying goes, all gave some, but some gave all. So it's a debt we'll never be able to fully repay. If you've got friends or family that are members of law enforcement or first responders or veterans or active duty military, reach out to them. Keep an eye on them. Let them know you care about them, because that text message you send them asking them how they're doing might be what keeps them off the edge. 22 a day is entirely too many. And you can go to the Valhalla Project and find all kinds of amazing products there. And the money from the Valhalla Project goes entirely to helping in veteran suicide. I fully support those guys. There's a lot of charities out there that when you really dig into them, you find out that less than 10 cents of every dollar actually goes to veterans. And that's really heartbreaking because some of them were charities I was very proud to support until I found that out. But with the Till Valhalla project, like 95% of what they make goes right back into veterans charities. And they pair veterans with therapy dogs. They pair veterans with with guide dogs, with especially in cases of people that have lost limbs. They've helped veterans get replacement, get artificial limbs. Till Valhalla project is an amazing project, and we if you guys want to donate to a charity, I wholeheartedly endorse that one. Um, 22 a day is 22 too many. So reach out to your friends and family that have put on a uniform. Doesn't matter what uniform it is, because everybody that's served has seen things that sometimes boggles the human mind. I know I've seen things in my career that stick with me. Sometimes in the dead of night when you can't sleep, there's certain images that just don't leave your brain. And I know all three of these guys right here know exactly what I'm talking about, and because it's happened to them. Just know that there are people out there that care. There are people that are out there you can reach out to. And if you don't think you've got anybody in your life, my contact information is up there. Reach out to me. I keep crazy hours, so it might take me a minute to answer a text, but if you've got no one else to talk to, reach out to me. Reach out to any of these guys. Our email addresses are all over the place. People care. I would much rather hear your story than read your obituary. 22 a day is 22 too many. And that kind of leads us to our parting toast. It's something that has kind of become near and dear to me here. I kind of started doing it just kind of as a different way to end the show, but it's really become important to me. There's one of the songs that I truly love. It's called "The Parting Glass." It's an old Irish drinking song. And when you first hear the lyrics, you think it's just a guy at the end of the night lifting a glass to the people that are still at the bar that he's leaving. But when you read between the lines, he's lifting a glass to those that aren't there anymore, to those who can't lift a glass at all, to the people we've lost along the way. So the parting glass is really about saying goodbye to the people we've lost. And 2023 has been a rough year on all of us. It has not been a great year. I have been to too many funerals this year, more than I care to mention. I've lost loved ones. I've struggled with my own depression. I've struggled with it a lot, probably more than just about anybody knows, except maybe my wife. We've had some issues going on that I will not go into. If you guys have paid attention, you know what's been going on, and it's weighed heavily on me. It's affected my writing. It's affected pretty much everything, and I'm tired of having my name dragged through the mud. But again, that's as far as I'm going to go on that. We're not going to address it publicly. But thank you, folks, for being not only part of the DAX Machination, but for spending your time with us, spending your evenings with us, because it means the world. This show is not just for idiots up here laughing and having a good time. It's therapy for all of us. We talk about cryptids. We talk about monsters. We talk about things and laugh and forget about the pressures that we've all faced. Forget about our own demons for a little while. And again, I've been there when too many folded flags were handed out, and I don't want to see any more. Hopefully, the next one I see is my own, and because I'm tired of burying friends and family. But I'll end this with the toast, and this is again it's from The Parting Glass. And it's a song that is very near and dear to me because it speaks of loss and it speaks of those who've gone before. And I'll raise my glass and give you this quote. But since it fell unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Good night, everybody.
Sound remains.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.